Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Tesla Time News.
Episode 171.
On Now You Know.
Brought to you, as always, by our amazing Patreon patrons. I don't know where we would be without them, but it would not be in front of your eyeballs.
And sponsored by our friends at the solar-powered hotels in Schaumburg, Illinois, the Fairfield Inn & Suites by Marriott, and the Town Place Suite Hotel, which is right next door. They're both connected, they're both solar-powered, and they both have EV charging.
And as Amazon associates, we earn from qualifying purchases. So for those last Christmas gifts that you are ordering off Amazon, you can click the link below, and some of the proceeds will help support the show.
And we've got some new EcoWear merch that we're wearing today. I'm wearing the Cybertruck shirt.
And I'm wearing the Cybertruck hat.
As you know, we carbon offset the manufacturer, shipping, and life cycle of your purchase, and we plant a tree for every order. Help support the show? Go to ecoware.us. Now you know.
We're going to be going to Fully Charged Live in Austin, Texas in February. That's February 1st and 2nd. You can get discounted tickets if you go to the link down below and type in NYK 2019. It'll get you 15% off tickets. All right, so before we get into the news, we have some exciting news.
Yeah.
So it's news. We have made a Now You Know Clips channel.
Yes.
And so let's just explain quickly what that is. This is where we're going to take a lot of the stories from Tesla Time News and In Depth, and we're going to be chopping them up really fine and putting them out as their own little separate videos. So if you see a story that you like in this episode of Tesla Time News and you want to share it with your friends without sharing a 1 hour long video, you can do that and they can watch it and not be super freaked out that it's an hour long.
Yeah, you had this idea like 2 years ago, and I was like, that's a dumb idea. But it's not. It's a really smart idea.
So we're trying it out. It's a new channel. It's a completely new channel. So if you go subscribe to that channel, you will get notifications for that channel. If you don't want to have anything to do with it, you don't have to subscribe, and it basically doesn't exist for you.
Yeah, we'll put the link down below, though, if you do.
All right, so more exciting footage of Cybertruck driving around.
It's so fun.
We've only seen it driving at night for the most part.
Yeah.
I think we've seen a couple pictures during the daytime.
Look at the acceleration.
I know. I mean, you don't see trucks doing this very often.
No, or when you do, yeah, there's just like diesel smoke that comes out of the back.
Right, it's extraordinarily loud. Yeah. So crazy looking. I can't get over how neat this thing looks.
But you know what's not neat is there's a whole bunch of polls that have come out in the past couple of weeks about Cybertruck. And all these polls are like, people want the Ford and GM pickup first, you know. And so here's a typical one, right? Consumers prefer EV trucks from GM and Ford over Rivian and Tesla.
Wait a second. GM doesn't have an electric pickup truck, and Ford has a prototype that they've shown once or twice.
Exactly. And if you actually read the wording of the poll, here's what it says. Assuming they had similar specs and you had to pick one, which of these 4 upcoming all-electric pickup trucks would you choose? Now, of course,
similar specs?
Yeah.
What? Excuse me? That's not how anything works.
No.
You wouldn't say, like, which of these ice creams, assuming they all tasted the same, do you like the best? You'd say, wait, but they don't taste the same. That's why chocolate tastes different than vanilla. And they'd say, no. Just imagine that they taste the same. Which one would you choose?
So basically what this is a brand contest. And what's really good news here is even though it shows this Tesla is only getting 20% of the vote, if having only been around in the truck market for 2 weeks, Tesla is already scoring 20%, imagine how it's going to do when the truck actually comes out.
Because this isn't what the truck market looks like now. The Tesla isn't even on the list. There are no pickup trucks to buy from Tesla at this precise moment.
Right.
So it's not even on the list. As soon as it comes in, it's going to start taking away market share from GM and Ford. And they've invested heavily in their trucking market. And as soon as that starts to slip away from them, I think that we're going to start to see Ford and GM start to slip away as well.
Exactly. Now, in a filing with CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board, Tesla has revealed that the Cybertruck should very likely qualify as a Class 2B-3 medium-duty vehicle.
2B3, of course.
Of course, yeah. That would put it in the same class as the Chevrolet Silverado, the GMC Sierra 2500, the Ford 250, the Nissan Titan XD, and the Ram 2500, with a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,500 to 10,000 pounds. Now, does that mean the Cybertruck is going to weigh that much?
No, so gross vehicle weight rating means fully loaded. If you put everything you could possibly stick in the back of the truck. So it's payload rating, plus the weight of the truck. What is that weight? And you get somewhere between 8,500 to 10,000 pounds of total weight.
Okay, and so because the payload of the Cybertruck, all three variants, is 3,500 pounds, we can subtract that out and get to what we think maybe the weight of the truck itself will be. So somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 pounds empty.
Now, you might be saying, like, oh my gosh, that's such a heavy truck. I thought I was going to be able to pick it up. I don't know why you thought that. But it's really good news because it means that the Tesla Cybertruck is going to be able to benefit from the Hummer tax incentive.
That's right. Section 179 tax deductions allow you to deduct a lot of stuff for businesses and usually excludes cars. But if your car is heavy enough, and usually that's only for trucks, usually over 6,000 pounds, then in the US, you can deduct it as a business expense, which means that, yes, your Cybertruck will be a business expense.
So the original intention of this was to sell more Hummers and large SUVs to businesses, and that was just to benefit the big auto and big oil market.
Right.
And now it's going to help Tesla to sell more Cybertrucks. Oh, how the turns table.
Nice. I like the Michael Scott reference there. So you remember at the Cybertruck event that this little thing, this ATV, the Cyberquad,
yes,
was kind of overlooked because we were so focused on the truck itself. Now we've had a chance to kind of look back and remember that this is going to be super cool. And one of the things that's super cool about it is it's going to be silent and it's not going to pollute. So check this out. This is footage of the ATV just driving around on the stage.
For those of you who don't, hang around ATVs, ride ATVs, have seen ATVs around, you might not understand how loud these things are, typically. So let's just, to give you a little comparison, here's a comparison.
What?
Right. Big difference in terms of noise pollution. This is going to be a complete game changer for anyone who likes riding ATVs because people don't like you riding your ATVs anywhere near where they live, work, commute. They don't want to see them. They don't want to hear them. The hearing part is the big one because these loud, farty sounding ATVs. Now you have the silent ATV. You're not going to have as many complaints because they won't know you're there.
And Elon hopes to bring it to market by 2021.
So check out this ad by VW.
I can't. Is that German?
Right. It's in German. So it says, Swiss Car of the Year 2020. Was it too easy, Tesla? Dear Tesla Model 3, I congratulate you on winning. Next year's competition will be stronger. See you next year. Greetings from the ID3.
That's so nice of VW to spend the money to advertise to say, good job, Model 3.
Well, it's not. It's more of a backhanded compliment. It's saying like, we weren't even competing, but next year, it's like if you were a baseball player and you said, oh, great job, John Jones, for being MVP this year, but next year I'm going to be playing and I'm going to get MVP. So actually you suck, but the only reason you got this award is because I wasn't there. So that's what they're basically saying.
Why was the ad in German though?
Well, that's because the ID3 isn't coming to America.
Yeah, it is. We were just at the LA Auto Show and they talked about how it was coming to America.
No, it's not coming.
Do you have any proof of this?
Yes. So Volkswagen's US CEO, Scott Keogh, said, to me, it's just simple. Simple logic. If you look at the segment that the ID3 competes in, let's call it the classic hatchback segment. In America, unfortunately, that's 100,000 cars. If you look at where we're going with the eSUV, that's 4 to 5 million cars. So look, we need to get these cars on the road. We need to show success. How do we come in with the ID3 and say we're just testing it out? They would say small Euro car, more of a compliance car, as opposed to an eSUV. They're going to say, wow, that's the heart of the market. In the heart of the segment, that's a real car. Let's go. We want to throw a good first punch. We never want to throw a weak first punch because you might not get a chance to throw a second.
Wait, what?
This is what he's saying. So if we call through the ramblings here, he's essentially saying there isn't enough of a market for the ID3 in the United States.
Because we love SUVs.
But there are plenty of hatchbacks.
I want to point out that VW sold 60,000 Golfs in the U.S. before the scandal. So, I mean, people love that form factor, which is what the ID3 is.
And he's assuming that the market is stagnant, that it doesn't change. People don't change their habits or their wants depending on the products that come out, because that's like looking at the smartphone segment back before the iPhone came out and be like, but nobody wants these smartphones, so therefore nobody is going to want this.
This reminds me of an email that Mercedes just sent out last Friday. They said, "Thank you for your interest in the EQC, an innovative new direction for Mercedes-Benz, which is getting a lot of attention. It launched in Europe and other markets several months ago and has generated so much interest worldwide that Daimler has had to make a strategic decision to first support the growing customer demand for the EQC in Europe. As a result of this decision, the US market launch date of the EQC will be rescheduled. We will continue keeping you updated on the latest news of this groundbreaking release as we gear up for the US debut of the EQC in 2021.
So all of this talk for the longest time about the EQC coming in 2020. This was back in like 2016. We were like, 2020? I don't think that it's going to come out in the US in 2020. And looks like we were right. So they're just going to Europe.
Yeah. Can you give me any reason why they're doing this?
Yes. Let's take a look at this chart here.
Okay.
So we're looking at small and mid-sized luxury cars sold this year.
What's the line at the top, the red one?
That's the Tesla Model 3. Now, you might think that the row below is the BMW 3 Series, and you'd be right, but it's also the 2 Series, the 4 Series, and the 5 Series.
Those aren't electric.
Yes, no, these are just all luxury cars.
No, I mean, you can't put an electric car up against all the ICE cars. That's not fair.
It's beating them, and it's beating them handily. So we're not just looking at one car below that. We're looking at all of BMW's small and mid-sized luxury cars.
Okay, what's the line below that?
That's all of Mercedes' cars.
No,
all of their luxury cars, even the small ones, which the Model 3 technically doesn't even fall into because it's a mid-sized sedan. It's out-competing all of Mercedes' cars.
Wait, and then that's Audi, Lexus, Infiniti, Acura, Cadillac, like...
The list goes on. All of their small and mid-sized luxury cars.
So this is why Mercedes and VW don't want to compete in the U.S. They know they're going to have their hat handed to them.
I think that they know that. I mean, on top of this, they have battery supply problems, so they're not going to be able to just churn out the cars and fill this global market. They're going to need to narrow it down, and the EU is going to have tighter emission standards, so they really need these electric cars in Europe. And since they can't really produce enough, they're going to just keep it in Europe.
And so Tesla right now has to ship all their cars over to Europe, which is, a lot harder for them to do. And the Gigafactory 4 is not up and running yet.
Right. And that raises the prices of all Model 3s in Europe.
Right, because of import tariffs.
Exactly. And so that means that the only way that these car companies are going to have an advantage, these 2 German car companies, is if they stick to Europe, they don't go to the US. And let's just look at this another way. Here are all the small and mid-sized luxury cars sold in the US this year. That top line is the Model 3. Everything else, those are the cars separated by individual cars. So you can see that the Model 3 outsold every other luxury car by an absolutely huge margin.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow.
When all of these luxury brands are going like, oh, the Tesla Model 3, oh, we're coming for you, it's because they're scared out of their mind.
And now BMW had been saying that the i3 would stop production in 2021 because their iNext platform would be rolling out then. And now they announced that they will continue the i3 in production until 2024. So the BEV SUV iX3 is due out next year.
But you just said that it's in production because the i3 is still in production.
Oh, no, the iX3. And then the electric iX4 sedan will be coming out. And then in 2021, the iNext crossover.
The iX what?
The iNext.
Into the iX4?
The iX4 is the sedan. And then the iNext is the crossover.
They need to work on their names.
I know.
Why can't they just call things the Why can't they just come up with regular names? I mean, they've named all sorts of other things.
So the i8 is already out. So it's just confusing to add an X in the middle.
And then to do the 3 and the 4.
But then call something iNext. Like,
it's very confusing. But I'm sure people will figure it out. But let's talk about the i3 for a second. The i3, they've basically always said, oh, we're going to stop production of that and make all these new electric vehicles. And it seems like they might be making these electric vehicles coming in a couple of years, which it always feels like it's just a couple of years away.
It's always a couple of years. I mean,
tomorrow. It's like
the i3 has not been refreshed in 7 years. And why is that? Because they pretty much thought they were going to be scrapping it soon. It had pretty good sales last year. It had 35,000 sales of the i3 last year.
Right. It is a pretty compelling electric car, especially for the specific purpose that it is, which is basically a commuter/city car. But yeah, it's hard to reconfigure because it's made out of entirely carbon fiber, so you have to retool all of that. And it's such a small footprint that it's hard to add more batteries to, so you can't get that much more range. And they've already squeezed just about everything out of the efficiency as well, because it's made out of carbon fiber and it has like bicycle tires. So, right, it's sad that this is their crutch to lead them on to the next step when, they've been selling the car for almost a decade now.
Yeah. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, released their latest findings. The Arctic has seen unprecedented warming. The mean annual land surface temperature in the Arctic this year was the second warmest in over 119 years. The Bering Sea has been almost ice-free for the past 2 years. This warmer water has disrupted the U.S. seafood catch as marine life has to go further north to find colder water. This has caused a die-off in the food web from microscopic creatures to seabirds, animals, and whales. 267 billion metric tons of ice have been melting from Greenland's ice sheet, causing more coastal flooding, and that thawing of the permafrost is releasing 300 to 600 million tons of net carbon a year into the atmosphere.
And this is why we have to all drive EVs and install solar panels and take all of the necessary steps to push our legislature to fix all of the problems and to enact regulations to prevent this catastrophic change.
So GM just loaned $40 million to Lordstown Motors for retooling their factory.
But no, because GM sold the Lordstown plant, the GM Lordstown plant, to Lordstown Motors.
Yep. And now they're loaning them $40 million to retool it.
But wait, they sold the factory to them for $20 million.
Yep.
And now you're saying they're loaning them $40 million?
Well, let me read you what GM spokesman Jim Kane said. We structured the sales agreement to help support Lordstown Motors' launch plans for the Endurance pickup. It allows them to take possession of the plant and to cover some operating expenses while they undertake their capital raise.
If they're making a pickup, if Lordstown Motors is making a pickup that will directly compete with GM's pickups.
Well, here's where I think we're missing the finer points here. GM is really good at one thing. Putting a bunch of financial lawyer types in a room and having them figure out all sorts of different ways to structure businesses so that they kind of own pieces of it, but they can cut themselves off from it if they want to. So basically, GM pretty much owns Lordstown Motors. It's like a joint venture they're doing with them. And I think this is going to be their next electric truck. If it doesn't work out, if the truck doesn't sell like they think it will, whatever, they can be like, hands off and be like, Lordstown Motors, don't know what that is.
But they owe us $40 million.
Why do you think they sold them the factory for $20 million? That's nothing for a factory. And it came with most of the machines in the factory.
Right. And let's be clear here. Lordstown Motors is working with Workhorse. So the company Workhorse, they've made a couple hybrid pickup trucks.
Right.
And also delivery vans. And so now GM kind of, I guess, wants to acquire Workhorse, all their technology. And so they made, or somebody made Lordstown Motors to work with them, and then these people work with them.
I mean, this is, Ford did this with Rivian, right? They threw some money at them, and they got Rivian's technology. GM is doing the same with Workhorse. They're getting their technology.
And so at some point, they're probably going to acquire them, all going well.
Probably.
So it's just really annoying to me that GM, instead of taking a bunch of engineers and putting them in a room to figure out technology, they just took a bunch of financial wonks and lawyers and put them in a room and had them figure out a way to get the technology in such a, like, why didn't they just innovate?
Exactly.
Why do they have to rely on outside companies? They're a huge company. They hire tons and tons of engineers. Why couldn't they just start a division called the Electric Truck Division, and you just say, oh, we're going to steal some dudes off of Tesla. We're going to steal some dudes off of Workhorse. You guys,
they're not good at that.
Figure out all this stuff. Make us an electric truck. I mean, I think it's because they know that they're behind at this point.
Yeah, but also they just don't have a culture of innovation. They don't have rooms full of innovative engineers. They have rooms full of engineers that'll do what you tell them to do, but they need vision, and they don't have it. So a Porsche Taycan can charge at 350 kilowatts, remember that number, and most Model 3s can charge at 250 kilowatts. So looking at these two facts, you would say what?
That the Taycan can charge faster than the Model 3. No, stop. You just said 350 kilowatts for the Taycan, 250 kilowatts for the Model 3.
I didn't give you all the information you need.
Okay.
Get this, the Porsche Taycan gets 69 miles per gallon equivalent from the EPA. That is lower than any electric car currently on sale in the US.
What?
Yeah, so the Model 3 Standard Range Plus is the highest efficiency with 141 miles per gallon equivalent. Obviously, again, we don't put gallons of gasoline into electric cars. This is how the EPA rates car efficiency. So 141 miles per gallon equivalent for the Model 3, that's 2 times more efficient than the Taycan.
Okay.
Let me. I can see you're having trouble here.
Yeah.
Look at this chart here from Electric. If you plug in a Porsche Taycan and you plug it in for 10 minutes, you will get 85 miles of range back into the battery.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty good.
Okay, but look at here. Model X long range, plug that in for 10 minutes, you get 95 miles of range.
But wait a minute. You just said the Model X.
Yeah.
Model X is an SUV.
Oh, yeah.
It can seat 7 people.
Yep, it's so much more efficient. Oh, but that's just not even close to how efficient some of their other cars are. Look at the Tesla Model S. You plug that in for 10 minutes, you get 111 miles of range back in the tank. And if you plug in the Model 3 Standard Range Plus, you get 118 miles in 10 minutes. And check out the long range Model 3, 160 miles of range back into the battery in 10 minutes.
But that's at a slower charging rate.
Yeah, because you have to also factor in efficiency. And that's where we're being misled by a lot of these claims by car manufacturers who are like, we can do 800 volts. And it's like, okay, but look at the efficiency as well.
And let's talk about the Taycan for a second. EPA just did their findings that it only gets 201 miles of electric range.
Yeah, they had claimed that it was going to have 280 miles, which would have been pretty good.
That's 79 fewer miles, almost 80 fewer miles. That's like a third less.
Well, that's because when they came out with the 280 number, that was based on WLTP standards, which are not real world at all. EPA is much more real world when they do their testing. Just to put this in perspective, that's 42% less range than the Model S Performance, which is the closest competitor to the Taycan.
So it's almost half.
Yeah. Oh, and we're not even talking about the price. Now, speaking of prices, Model 3 just had a price increase. The dual motor long range and the Standard Range Plus Model 3 have price increases of $500. So the long range is now $48,990 and the Standard Range Plus is now $39,990.
This is good news for Tesla. I mean, It shows that demand is high and they're able to demand a little bit more money for the Model 3. And honestly, if you're going to be buying a Model 3, $500 is not going to be that make or break.
And it's going to add to the margin of the vehicle.
Right.
All right, so Jesse, take a listen to this sound. What do you think it is?
It sounds like a sound effect from like an early 2000s like kids edutainment game.
Well, not quite. It's VW's new AVAS, or Acoustic Vehicle Alerting System, for their ID3 EV. So when they're traveling at speeds below 19 miles an hour or reversing, that's the sound you'll hear. So in July, EU started requiring EVs to emit noise for pedestrians when they travel under 12 miles an hour or when they're in reverse. And the US will require EVs to have sound starting in September of 2020 for speeds up to 19 miles an hour.
Right. And I'm very against this. I think that this is ridiculous. And the argument put forth is that this is going to be helping blind people because they will be able to hear the car coming, whereas normally they wouldn't be able to hear the car coming. I would argue that we do a lot of things that don't benefit blind people, and that this is kind of a weird one.
I don't think that the regulators understand. When you're talking about one car, that's the sound you'll hear. But what if hopefully in the near future, we'll have lots of electric cars on the road. If whole cities have, 20, 30, 100 cars pulling up to a stop sign, and it's just going, it's going to be noise pollution. And that means that blind people are not going to be able to hear other sounds they need to hear.
It doesn't matter. You can rip out the speaker, right? It's not embedded into the motor of the car, which is nice because normal internal combustion engines, the noisemaker is the engine. You take out the engine, the car don't go. So this is a much better solution. Whatever, you can put whatever regulations you want. People will always do whatever they want.
So if Norway were in the EU, it would be the 20th largest nation by population. It has a population of 5.3 million people, just ahead of Ireland. But get this, Norway has been number one in EV sales since EV sales started with the Leaf back in 2010.
But according to Bloomberg, Germany, a country with 82.8 million people, has finally become number one in EV sales with 57,533, edging out Norway's 56,893 since the beginning of the year. It's a little embarrassing for Germany. And honestly, way to go, Norway. You're dealing with a population of less than 10 times, and you're keeping up with the big guys. I think that's really impressive. It really shows how incentives work, especially when we're talking about electric cars.
Well, and also Norway didn't have to fight having a culture of, German auto industry. So speaking of Germany, check this out. This is the Giga 4 layout of what the Berlin Gigafactory is going to look like.
Cool. So the hier parken die Mieterbergen, that's where you park your Mieterbelters.
I'm sorry, you probably want to see this. This is the English translated version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so check this out. It shows you all the different parts of the Gigafactory. Now, a couple cool things here that we found out from Bild magazine in Germany. First is that the Gigafactory 4 is going to produce 500,000 Model Ys and Model 3s per year. So that gives us a good indication of what they're planning to pump out. And according to Bild, it's going to have 10,000 jobs once it's fully operational. So that's awesome for Germany. And Tesla is planning to invest up to 4 billion euros. I don't know if that's exactly what it's going to cost, but if that does cost 4 billion euros, that is a way more expensive factory than the one in China.
And it looks like they're going to be putting in a new railway connection to the Gigafactory, so that's going to open up deliveries by train, which is going to be awesome. And let's also take a look at the layout here. You see all the buildings there on the left of that. I guess you'd call it it's like an eraser shape. I mean, it's a rectangle with the edges rounded
It's like a cell phone.
It's a bit longer than a cell phone.
Elongated cell phone?
No. But you can see that it's all on the left. Yeah. And what you could do is take that same footprint, flip it over onto the right-hand side.
Oh, so you're saying that's just half a Gigafactory?
Well, no, actually. Let's take a look at how big that factory is that they've proposed.
Oh, right, because they've got a scale there. Okay.
Absolutely.
How long is that?
So that is about a mile long, or like 1.6 kilometers long.
I mean, that's a Gigafactory for you.
That's really long. But let's go to the Gigafactory 1.
Okay.
The current Gigafactory 1 is about 910 meters long. So that is about half of the length of this Gigafactory. Now, if you take the full length of what the Gigafactory should end up being, it's not fully built yet, Gigafactory 1 in Nevada, you get 1.3 kilometers long.
So you're saying this footprint is bigger than the Sparks, Nevada Gigafactory footprint, possibly?
Possibly.
Wow.
And the exciting thing about that is that by having all of this open space, first you can have nice picnics while you're done building the electric cars.
Sure.
But at some point, if Tesla wanted to invest another maybe, I don't know, $2-3 billion into building another factory in Europe, they could just build it right there.
Oh.
So they would already have
double their output.
Double the output. You'd have a built-in workforce, presumably. All the suppliers would be sending it to the same address.
Right.
Nothing would need to really be updated except for the volume. Everything would just be more.
Interesting.
I think that's a really exciting way to look at this Gigafactory in Europe, is that they've given themselves some more space.
So let's go to Italy right now. The CEO of Ferrari, Louis Camilleri, he has reiterated again that they have no plans to make an electric Ferrari.
What?
He said last week, the battery technology is not where it should be yet. There are still significant issues in terms of autonomy, in terms of speed of recharging, so eventually we will come out with one, but it's post-2025, not in the short term.
Has he heard of the next generation Tesla Roadster?
¿Qué? ¿Qué cosa?
Does he think that that's going to come out in 2025? You're Ferrari. Like we talked about Porsche last week, they shouldn't be impressed with anything. Ferrari, it's a good thing that you're not impressed with anything. But maybe you should be ahead if you're going to be not impressed with anything.
I think a lot of these companies think they can rely on their brand to save them, and they don't realize that their brand was built up from years of reputation of being the best. And so when Tesla comes along and starts taking that from you by being the best, your brand is now worthless.
It's shredded.
Yeah.
Every time a Tesla beats a Ferrari in a drag race, they're just taking their reputation and just ripping it in half because who cares? Ferrari who? It doesn't matter.
So now to Israel. Re is an Israeli startup now valued at $580 million that has been in stealth mode since July.
It showed off its platform, which is essentially behind the wheels.
Now, can you explain this to me?
So Re replaces the motor, steering, suspension, drivetrain, sensing, braking, and electronics, and they put it all in this wheel module. And then they take that and they bolt it onto a battery pack.
Wait, so what we're seeing here, that platform is just basically a glorified battery pack, and then all of the electronics, all of the motor, all of that is behind that wheel?
Right, so there is no motor in the center that goes out. There's no like transfer of power in the traditional sense that you think about it. No drive shafts, obviously it's an electric car, but there's no half shafts coming off of a centrally driven motor. Each of those things can independently steer because they're all smart. So basically each wheel on there is its own smart wheel. They can all turn individually. They can all go individually.
Wait, so talk to me about being able to turn all four wheels individually. What advantage does that give you?
Well, it allows you to do things. It allows you to steer with the back wheels. First of all, that's like the first thing. The second thing is you can just turn all the wheels in one direction and then start going sideways if you want to.
Oh, cool.
And especially with that short length, you could turn all the wheels to about 45 degrees and then just turn in place.
Oh, that's neat.
So it gives you a lot of different interesting things there. Big question for me is cost. Big question for me is scalability and stuff like that. But in terms of concept, I think that this is really exciting because as they show in their video, you can put just about anything you want on that platform.
Yeah, I mean, the company now has about 100 employees and about 60 patents. So we talk a lot about air pollution on Tesla Time News and how it affects not just climate crisis, but also human health. So here's a study for you that shows a clear cause and effect. Let's go back to the summer of 1996. The Summer Olympics, the city of Atlanta, they implemented a 17-day alternative transportation strategy to lower air pollution, right? And to get people off the roads, involving 24-hour transportation, additional bus service, telecommuting options, and closure of downtown Atlanta to private automobile traffic. And it was effective. Peak morning traffic dropped by 23%, and peak daily ozone dropped by 28%. So in the next 4 weeks, there was a reduction in children seeking medical care for asthma by 42% based on Medicaid claims and 44% based on Health Maintenance Organization data. There was an 11% decrease in pediatric emergency department visits and a 19% decrease in hospitalizations for asthma. You lowered pollution for 17 days, and then 4 weeks later, you get a massive health benefit.
But let's just talk about this for a second. This was back in 1996. There were no electric cars to speak of. So they weren't replacing everything with like clean transportation or anything like that. They were just saying, so instead of everyone getting in their own individual car and driving to work that day, you're going to need to take buses or carpool.
Right.
Very low-tech solutions. They weren't like replacing engines and stuff. They weren't putting special filters on anything. It was just, that was it. And they were able to reduce asthma-related hospitalizations by that much.
Yes. We'll put the link down below to the study. But I mean, what this shows is something we talk about all the time on our program, which is that we aren't counting the health effects of burning fossil fuels. Right. We just negate all that. We just talk about the cost at the pump, when in fact it has a cost on our health and the environment. But this is a clear case here where we have data that shows it had an effect on human health, and we're just putting a blind eye to that.
Right. And this is such a small example. It's not like we shut down all of the coal plants for a year and we stopped burning all fossil fuels in a whole continent. This was just one city for this one specific event, did this one thing, and it was just to reduce traffic. It was hardly even to reduce pollution, and yet it did reduce pollution. Imagine if we retool to look at the future in this way. Or what if we use this solution instead?
Oh, what is this?
So this is called Pollution Solution.
I like the name.
It is a UK startup. The concept is to suck polluted air from the middle of roadways and mostly around intersections through underground pipes to filter stations on the side of the road, cleaning the air. So the idea is, you've got pipes and a big fan and a filter, and you're sucking the air right from where the tailpipes are of the cars in the middle of and you do this in the cities. You're not doing this everywhere, right? Okay. Just in the cities, just on the intersections where the cars are idling for a very long time. And that means that there's a high concentration of pollutants there. So you're just sucking it out and, refreshing it.
It seems like so much work.
Yeah, it does. It does, but it is a huge problem. Air pollution kills 4.6 million people a year. 4.6 million people a year. But I think that this solution, which seems to be a good solution, highlights how crazy the system that we have is.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Anman, he's the CEO of Cruise Automation. He said, imagine if someone invented a new transportation system and said, I've designed a new way of getting around. It's powered by fossil fuels that will pollute our air. It will congest our cities to the point of inciting rage in our users. Its human operators will be fallible, killing about 40,000 Americans and more than 1 million people around the world every year. Most of the time, the equipment will sit unused, occupying prime real estate and driving up housing costs. If you're young, old, or living with a disability, then you can't use it. And for those who can, the privilege will cost $9,000 a year and suck up 2 years of your life. Sound good?
No, it sounds crazy. When you put it that way, it sounds crazy. And this solution to pollution, let's face it, is pretty crazy. It's pretty out there to be like, well, what we need to do to solve this problem is we need to put pipes under the road to suck up the problem from the tailpipes of the cars that we drive.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like a solution to me because I first would think, like, why can't we put filters on the cars themselves? Right? And so that they're not emitting anything. I mean, that would seem the smarter solution to put the filter there at the source. And secondly, it sounds really incredibly expensive to embed all these pipes in the roads. To me, I would think, like, why can't you put fans and filters by the side of the roads?
To talk a little bit more about this specific solution, the idea would be that you're just focusing on the parts of the world that need it the most, which are intersections in cities where there's a lot of traffic.
Okay.
And that means that there's a high concentration of pollutants, which means that people with asthma, well, it's going to give people asthma, especially children, in that area. So to fix that, you can just put this into a couple intersections and maybe that would solve the problem. But this isn't the root of the problem, is it? This is just a Band-Aid on what is essentially a bullet wound, and it's not fixing it.
And this just highlights the insanity of where we're at right now. And in fact, it shows that a simpler solution to this whole thing would be for us to drive electric cars, all of us.
Because if we were to factor in the health effects of the pollution that we create by driving our gas-burning cars, you would pretty quickly come to the realization that to fix that problem would be pretty expensive to use a system like this.
So Tesla white hat hacker Green has tweeted that he has found assets for HBO, Comedy Central, Crunchyroll, Yoku, Tencent, Twitch, and Mixer embedded in Tesla's operating system.
So he found actual logos for these apps in the Tesla operating system, which could mean that coming to a Tesla near you would be these streaming services. And that would be kind of nice because they've just rolled out the fee to use, these kind of entertainment platforms. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this shows that Tesla hasn't really been big enough until this point to be its own platform or network. But now, if Disney Plus, for instance, wants to be in Tesla cars, they could pay to be a part of that platform, which I would think for a growing platform that's exclusive to Tesla owners would be exactly what a lot of companies want to be a part of.
Now, keep in mind that you're still going to have to probably sign in to all of these different streaming services. So if it's just like with your smart TV.
Right.
If you're not, if you don't pay for HBO, you're not going to be watching HBO on it. But it's cool that you could be watching HBO in your car.
And now Green has been busy because he's, not only found out about these services, he's also found that these assets about traffic lights and stop signs are also available, probably coming soon in the Tesla driving visualization display.
This kind of goes to the point where Tesla is saying that stoplights and stop signs are going to be recognized by the system. Now they will actually show up in the display. So I like how we're building, first there were the cars, and then there were the people and the motorcyclists and the bicyclists, and then they're adding more and more, and they have traffic cones, and now they're going to have lights and stop signs.
Yeah. It's really cool that Green and other hackers are out there figuring out what's coming in the software.
That's so cool.
So we reported how Tesla's chief technology officer, JB Straubel, is stepping into a more advisory role at Tesla, and that may be because we have learned that JB has started a battery recycling company called Redwood Materials. Now, this is based in northern Nevada, not far from the Gigafactory in Sparks.
It appears to be very small at the moment, with former Tesla head of special projects Andrew Stevenson working with JB at the company.
Now, please watch Galley's video on Hyperchange for more information about it. But according to JB, Redwood is not doing any direct work with Tesla at the moment, but I would conjecture that they will be in due time. So I would just say if you go to their website, you can see here they're in stealth mode, so they're not telling you much about the company, but they are telling you who they're looking for employees. So if you're in that area looking for a cool job, a job where maybe like every day you'd work with JB Straubel, I would say maybe apply.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's a long shot, even if you're only going to work there for 3 months and then they're like, you're not good enough, get out of here, it would be worth it, I think, for sure.
I know. Imagine getting to pick JB's brain every morning.
Absolutely. And all the different connections you'd make. I just think the experience alone would be worth working
So
there.
can we just talk about this for a second? I think that this company is going to be working with Tesla closely to recycle batteries. So let's think about it. If you have a battery pack of a car and inside of that are cells, you have all the materials you need basically to make a battery. You don't have to go and get the aluminum ore anymore, or the cobalt or whatever. It's all right there. We think of it as trash now, like, just throw it away. But if you can recycle it well and get all those raw materials back to what you need, you basically have everything you need to build a battery again.
Right. And of course, that takes energy and it takes engineering to figure out how to do all of this. But if anyone in the world were able to do it, I think JB Straubel would be one of my top picks. This is really exciting, especially for Tesla, because I think, JB creates this thing. They recycle all the batteries for Tesla. That could lower the price of batteries even more. If you're using your recycled batteries, which have all of the same components that you need, and you're able to get a very high yield rate of those same components, people are going to give you the batteries for basically free because they need to replace them at some point. And now you're just looking at recycling everything. So as many of us know by now, the climate control system uses energy to do its job, which in an electric car, or actually in any car, reduces range. How much range? According to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, about 50% of the range of an electric car.
Okay, stop right there. That cannot be true. I know for a fact that even on a cold day, I don't use half my range for my battery to heat my car.
I will say that the Leaf is pretty close to half.
I agree with that.
Because it's about 3 kilowatts of usage. You're not going to go very fast, which means you're not going to go very far. And that 3 kilowatts is time-based. So you maybe.
Okay.
So for a
whatever.
Leaf,
but it's a good point. It does use some energy.
It does use some energy.
What are you driving at?
So Ford is about to solve all of this.
What? That's
Yes.
amazing. They've got some new innovation. What is it?
So they're using colored lights to make people feel cooler or warmer. So red or blue lights, so red makes you feel warmer, blue makes you feel cooler. So in both cases, using colored ambient lighting resulted in reducing the power usage of the climate system by 3.3% for cooling and 2.5% for heating.
Okay, I listened to your whole thing. Where's the innovation? You said they used lights. What else did they use?
No, that's it. They used lights, so that way you don't feel
So like lasers? They
as cool.
aimed lasers at...
No. It's just that the inside of the car is now all red. Because it's cold outside, you feel all cold. And
Well, let's try it. All right, so boys, put up a red car. Ready?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, this works. Totally. I'm just hot. Ooh, it's hot in here. All right, try do a blue interior. Let me...
it doesn't.
that works. That works.
So this accounts for about 7 miles of range on a 250-mile EV.
Can you just stop for a second? You're telling me that Ford is trying to solve heating and cooling by just putting red or blue lights in a car?
Right, but 7 miles of range for 250 miles.
But that's just like some kind of placebo effect. That's not going to... If I go into my car and like 20-degree day and I hop in there with a red light on, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, it's warm in here.
Right. Well, and also there's the whole thing about like how your brain perceives light to tell you what time it is. So you have all these blue lights on in the middle of the summer, and now you're like, why can't I sleep? It's because your brain was like, it was blue light. Blue light means daytime.
Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they just turn the music on and then you start dancing and that warms you up in the winter?
Right. I mean, the speakers also use energy. And heck, I mean, even the lights use energy, and they used a lot of lights. The thing here is, why not do seat warmers?
Yeah.
That is a super efficient way to heat someone. It's about 45 watts, not kilowatts. Turning on the heat in the Leaf, 3 kilowatts of energy over, constantly. Heat seat warmers,
much more
45 watts of energy.
Right.
So Tesla has released an extra large solar size to their website in a very American fashion. So previously they only had up to large, but now you can do extra large, which is 15.2 kilowatts. And this is what they say for typically 4,000 plus square foot homes.
Nice.
And this will produce an average of 58 to 77 kilowatt hours per day.
That's a lot.
And it's best suited for a home with an average electric bill of about $340 to $460 a month. It costs $39,093 before incentives. Or you could do the solar subscription program for $195 a month.
Sign me up for that.
Because that is going to knock down your energy bill by more than $195, and you're basically printing money with your roof. And for those of you who don't want panels is not what you want. You want the solar roof, damn it.
Yes.
Well, Tesla has announced all of the places that the solar roof is going in on. We're going to have a list right here. So we're talking California, some places in Florida, Nevada, and Texas.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing big hiring events to hire roofing contractors. And I mean, if we do the numbers, because I mean, Elon said he wanted to have 1,000 roofs installed per week by the end of this year. End of this year is pretty much here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's going to meet that goal, but that would mean you'd probably need about 500 roofing crews. Because that would be, say, 2 houses per week, to do this. So, I mean, if that's true where they're hiring, they're going to be hiring a lot of roofing contractors. Right. So, I mean, if you're out there in the roofing industry, I would be looking to hop onto this list.
Tesla also held solar glass energy hiring events in Massachusetts and Maryland last week.
Oh, so East Coast too.
Yes,
that's great.
2 states that have good solar programs.
Now, if watching these solar stories makes you want to get solar on your house, we recommend going to Energy Geeks. They're changing their name actually in January to Energy Pal. So I would recommend going to them. We have a video of them where we interviewed them right here. And so go over to them, give them a call. They will tell you everything you need to know about getting solar on your house because they know everything about it. You can ask them dumb questions, smart questions. They'll answer them all.
Right. And they're not putting the solar panels on your house. They are finding the guys with the hammers and drills and solar panels.
And you're not paying them directly. They're going to get their fee out of the installation anyway, so it doesn't cost you more to do this. It's just that you have these helpful people who are actually trying to find you the best possible deal for you. So this story warmed my heart. Greta Thunberg was named Time's Person of the Year. Time's editor-in-chief Edward Feltensal explained why they named Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old Swedish climate activist and the youngest person ever to be named Time's Person of the Year.
She became the biggest voice on the biggest issue facing the planet this year, coming from essentially nowhere to lead a worldwide movement.
And she also represents a broader generational shift in the culture that we're seeing from the campuses of Hong Kong, the protests in Chile, to Parkland, Florida, where the students marched against gun violence. Young people are demanding change and urgently. She embodies youth activism. Her rise in influence has really been extraordinary. She was a solo protester with a hand-painted sign 14 months ago. She has now led millions of people around the world, 150 countries, to act on behalf of the planet. She has taken this issue from backstage to center.
So we're going to be talking about this more on the Patreon bonus stories. Little fun fact, the Patreon bonus stories, we talk about a little bit more nuanced subjects sometimes. We're able to really get into the details of something, talk about stuff in a bit more mature ways.
Yeah. I love stories about electric airplanes, Jesse. You know that. And this one's pretty exciting to me. This is Vancouver-based Harbour Air. They just completed their debut test flight of what aims to be the world's first fully electric commercial aircraft. Now, we have heard from other companies that are working on the same thing, and I think it's all just basically a race at this point to getting, the certifications you need. But founder and CEO Greg McDougall took off solo in the converted DHC-2 de Havilland Beaver float plane for the 3-minute test flight over Richmond, British Columbia on December 10th.
It's a prototype for sure, but in every way, it's a high-tech piece of equipment, which is kind of ironic considering the airframe that it's attached to is actually 1 year younger than me, 62 years old.
So Harbor Air has partnered with Seattle-based Magnix last year to design the lithium-ion battery-powered propulsion system. These are the same batteries that are approved by NASA for the International Space Station. Magnix CEO Roy Ganzarski said, "It means you can stop driving for 3, 5, 7 hours to get to a destination because there's no other way to get there. It means you can fly in a small aircraft from a small airport to a small airport. It's faster, cheaper, and more convenient than any other method of travel, including going with a standard airline." Now, they have about a 2-year timeline ahead of them to get all the necessary certifications, because obviously this has to be tested. But how exciting is that, to be able to fly in a zero-emission airplane?
I think that this is super exciting. And yeah, I think that we're going to be seeing this in the small scale first. So Harbor Air, I think also Cape Air in Massachusetts is working on a very similar project where you're doing these smaller hops. It's not a long distance flight in smaller aircraft with fewer people.
Yeah. All right, it's time for our video contributor stories. And this week we've got Wayne with his Supercharger.
Hey, Zach and Jesse. This is Wayne Thomas calling from the world's most convenient Supercharger. Now, in this case, super and charger are separate words. Whenever I talk to people about my Tesla, one of the most common points of contention is that they don't have a place to charge their car. Now, I had the same thing because I live in a condominium. We do have a destination charger down the street, and it's terribly inconvenient, but I thought, well, it'll do. So I got my Tesla, and when I got home, I discovered that, oh, well, of course, I do have a charger of sorts right there. Now, if you don't have an outlet close to your car like that, simply run an extension cable from your house across out to the street. Now, in the 4 months I've had this set up, I've never once had a problem with running out of charge because it's almost always completely charged. That's because with 110, 120 volts, you'll get 7 or 8 kilometers per hour of charge. That's about 5 miles per hour. That means that overnight, you'll get about 100 kilometers. Now, if you have less than 100 kilometers on average of driving, then you can go out and buy that Tesla that you've been lusting after. Now, this Supercharger of mine, I rate it as a 7 out of 10. That's because there's no shopping center, no restaurants, and no hotels nearby. However, there is a fridge full of food and a warm bed in what's called home.
Okay, so it wasn't a Supercharger, but for him, it's super.
Absolutely. And I can relate to this exactly because that's how I charge my car, right? I just plug it into a wall outlet and I'm good. I hardly ever need to charge anywhere else.
Right, for you, it's your Supercharger.
Absolutely.
All right, it's time for our Patreon bonus stories. So head on over to Patreon, support us for as little as $1 a month, and you'll get to share in all of our Patreon bonus stories, which this week we've got a bunch of cool ones. See you there. Hey everybody, we're back from our Patreon bonus stories. It's time for our Patreon shoutouts. Who do we have this week, Jess?
We have Art Lightstone,
Matthew Josie,
Jaunty Oglesby,
Eric Johnson,
Jamal Quatan,
Penny and Sean,
Guliman,
Paul D. Payne,
Jimmy Hojikilde,
Caesar and Laura Flores,
George Clark,
Thomas Heidekamp,
Fred Hardy,
and Andrew Harland.
Thank you so much for supporting this channel. We couldn't do it without you.
All right, it's time for Elon's tweet of the week. This was tweeted out by his mom, but I think it still counts. This is Elon fixing his side window back in 1995. I just think it's hilarious that basically this kind of ties in with what happened to the Cybertruck, that he was basically fixing a window that broke. Mm-hmm. If you had told him in 1995, if you had gone through a time machine, tapped him on the shoulder and be like, in 2019, something like this is going to happen.
Yeah, I just think that that's really cool. I think that it's neat that he had to fix his cars himself.
I also
in
just want
1995, you know?
Yeah. No, I also just want to mention that that Elon's mom is coming out with a book. It'll be coming out on December 31st. If you want to pre-order it, it might be a good like Christmas present or something. Who knows what she wrote about? I'm dying to see. Maybe there's some stories about young Elon in there, but that could be kind of cool.
Maybe it has nothing to do with Elon.
Maybe it doesn't. I have no idea. All right, it's time for community mail time. Community mail time. And I just want to do a little plug here for people sending in their picks. So if you are a Patreon, then you already know there's a secret code word that you use to message us so that we can talk to you. But yeah, so I urge you to, first of all, join Patreon so that we can get in touch with you, but also to message us on Facebook. You can send us your pictures of your new EV or your solar system or your inventions or your road trips, because we love hearing about all that stuff, and we love sharing all of your stories and ideas and photos and videos on Community Mail Time. So please send those all in to us, and we'd love to see them. Now, Jesse, you remember The Adventures of Starman.
Yes, I've been eagerly awaiting a sequel.
Well,
to the first.
The second episode is out. Is it called Episodes with comic books? Is it called Issue? Second issue?
Issue release? Is issue first edition?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We're
not comic
second
book
issue.
people.
This is Big Oil Strikes Back. It is so awesome. These are our friends Eli and William. Super talented, super awesome. It just makes you feel like all the stuff we talk about on the show, it's in here.
That's fun.
So anyway, yeah, we'll put the link down below to go check out their. We've got them all up on the show. Like we love The Adventures of Starman. So go check this out. You're gonna love it. It'd be a great Christmas present.
It would. So order it. Like, stop watching. Go order it now, I guess.
You know what else will make a great Christmas present?
What?
Our buddy Joe in New Jersey made this. This is an electric snowplow. He used a Ryobi ride-on lawnmower, and he attached a snowplow to it. And now when it snows out, he can just drive up and down his driveway and plow the snow out of the way. Yeah, I know.
Joe, if you want, I mean, I could, if you need somewhere to like keep it during the winter,
perfect.
I can take care of it.
And our buddy Rudy from Germany points out that what we won't have to deal with in the coming EV revolution is this: cleaning up parking spaces with oil. You know, you see a car that pulls out of a parking space and there's a big puddle of whatever it is, some kind of
fluid.
One fluid or another that the car needed, right? And then
if it smells like syrup, it means it's this. If it's pink, it means that. And if it's green, don't touch it. Right. I don't remember what all the things are. Right?
But I mean, there's really no fluids to speak of in an EV other than window washing fluid. So
there's some coolant somewhere, but it don't come out.
Right, exactly. All right, it's time for our on-air question of the week. What do we got this week?
So Jenny asks us, with the new computer in the Tesla, do you think they will add an AI with voice control like Alexa? So,
I mean, we kind of already have that, right? You can already say, like, navigate to a restaurant.
Right. And it's really good because you can say, like, navigate to such and such library, or you can say an address.
I mean, the other day you corrected yourself mid-sentence and it figured it out.
It figured it out. It's really smart in terms of stuff like that. The other things.
So, like, what would you want it to do for you?
Yeah, I think the charge port. Open the charge port door, Tesla.
I'm sorry, Jesse. I can't do that.
Okay, that would be a great Easter egg.
Wouldn't it?
For sure. Because they wouldn't even have to program in it.
I mean, you could just say, like, Hal, and then it would,
Right. If you said open the charge port door, Hal, I think that is a great Easter egg. You can get that one for free, Elon.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the computer can already do this. So, I mean, anything Tesla wants to add. The only thing I can think of, though, is that there's probably some Department of Transportation rules that don't allow certain things to be done by your voice, because you might accidentally, like, if you're driving along and you're like, Tesla, put it in reverse, like.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yes, that right. Specific
But
one.
yeah, but things like charge port doors and stuff like that, yeah, that'd be cool.
You could turn on lights, or you could say, like, move the passenger seat all the way forward.
Right.
Move the passenger seat all the way back. Like, that would be super useful.
Yeah, turning on seat warmers.
Turning on inside lights, turning on seat warmers. If you're in park, it could do a bunch of different features.
But the thing is, Jenny, to your question, they don't really need the new computer to do that. That new computer is basically just a more powerful...
Just for autopilot.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, the existing computer can do all that.
It does a great job, because it won't do things that you tell it to do, but it will hear you. It just won't know what to do with it. Like, if you tell it to open the charge port door, it just won't know what to do.
Right. All right, so we've got a poll that we put out last week. It said, what do you think of Tesla's $9.99 a month connectivity charge? And most of the people said, it makes sense. Somebody's got to pay for it. And then some agreed with you, Jesse, and were like, that's not what I signed up for.
Well, somebody does have to pay for it. I agree.
Sure. All right, it's time for good news, bad news. The good news is that the 2019 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Madrid just wrapped up, and the big focus was on carbon credits, which is a system that would allow a polluting country to close the gap in their climate goals by paying to preserve, say, forests in the Amazon. The good news is that the negotiators were able to put out a text on the future of carbon markets. And I guess the other good news for me is that young people held 2 big marches during the convention, which was great to see.
That's really nice. What's the bad news?
Well, according to The Guardian, there is still no guarantee of any resolution to the disputes over carbon markets. Countries have until the next UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is scheduled for next November in Glasgow, Scotland, to announce how they will make even deeper cuts to the greenhouse gases that they promised in 2015. So countries like China, India, Brazil, Russia, Australia, and Saudi Arabia have made no indications of their willingness to enhance their ambitions, and the U.S. is leaving the Paris Agreement. Oh, and Japan is refusing to phase out coal. So basically, all the major polluters are deciding to not lead, and so how can we expect other countries to do anything but follow this mediocrity?
Oh, so that's pretty bad.
Yeah, and as Greta said, how do you respond to the fact that basically nothing is being done about this without feeling the slightest bit of anger? And do you communicate this without sounding alarmist? I would really like to know.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. Like, to me, that all these countries bothered to get together for 2 weeks. First of all, I hope you had a lousy time. I hope you got there and, you had...
It was raining in Madrid.
I hope the fire alarms went off in your hotel every night at like 3 a.m. And I just hope you had a freaking crappy time because you went there and wasted everyone's time.
It's true.
What the hell?
For 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating that we don't have just a leader, just someone who is saying the right things. I mean, we kind of do with Greta, but she's not in charge of anything. It would be nice if just one country would just stand up and just say, we're going to do everything right.
Yep.
And all of you other guys suck, but we're going to do everything right. And you guys suck, so you better just follow us and do the right thing. I think it's a lack of future understanding about what the world is going to look like, obviously. But secondly, this idea that like it's going to somehow cost us way more isn't entirely true. Like, it's all an investment. If we invested in clean renewable energy, yes, it would cost money up front, but we would reap the benefits of that for decades upon decades upon decades, and just move us and the culture in a more positive way. That's the important thing to keep in mind, and it's just frustrating that it didn't happen.
All right, it's time for Supercharger reviews. Let's see what we got this week.
So hi, Zach and Jesse. This is Chris reporting from Frederick, Maryland. We have a brand new Supercharger, 10 stalls, 150 kilowatts of charging. It is located right off the highway, Route 70. There is a mall right across the way there. You can see many places to eat and find a place to rest. There's probably about 5 or 6 restaurants nearby that are very nice. There's also a Sheetz that's 24-hour, and it's about a quarter of a mile in that direction. And I would rate this probably about an 8 out of 10, simply because it's not that easy really late at night to find something open other than that, perhaps that Sheetz gas station. And now you know.
Zach and Jesse, it's Gabriella in Walnut Creek, California at a new Tesla charging facility. When you get here, just make sure you keep winding to the top, because this is the top floor. So you should see open sky. It's a little confusing in the parking lot, and there are not a lot of signs. There's plenty to eat here, a lot to do. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Now you know.
Hey, Zach and Jesse, checking in from the Hagerstown Supercharger. We are in Hagerstown, Maryland. This is a 6-stall Supercharger. We are in the Hagerstown Premium Outlets. This is conveniently located in the back of the outlets, right beside the food court. So if you want to grab a snack or get a bio break while you're waiting for your Tesla to charge, this would be a great place to stop. Overall, I would give it an 8 out of 10. And now you know.
Hey Zach and Jesse, this is Kevin. I am at the Lake Geneva Supercharger in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's located at the Grand Geneva Resort and Spa. There are 6 stalls here. I'm the only one currently using any of them, as you can see. Behind me, there's a little playground, some tennis courts, things you'd see at a resort. Probably not a great location if you're going to try to spend a lot of time here. Probably a really good spot if you're staying at the actual resort and spa. It's actually quite a bit of the way off of the main roads through the area. However, it does provide an opportunity as there aren't many superchargers in Wisconsin at this point in time. Charged pretty quickly. I only needed about 15%, and I was at the end of charging my battery. Was getting about 70 kilowatts at that point in time. Other than that, though, there's not much else to do, as I said. So unless you're staying at the resort, you're probably just stopping here pretty quickly to get a quick charge and back on the road. With that, and if you're staying at the resort, obviously it's phenomenal and it's a 10 out of 10. If you're just using it to quickly get on your way, probably a 3 out of 10 because there's not much else to do. We were just watching some Netflix and YouTube while we were waiting for the last 20 minutes. So it's great to have that in your car now when there isn't much else at a supercharger. All right, guys, now you know.
Love that part of the show. I love seeing everyone's supercharger reviews. Keep in mind, film it in landscape, so the same aspect ratio of the show.
All right, it's time for new superchargers. What do we got?
We have the 16 stall in Skarnes, Norway.
We got the 2 stall in Sveg, Sweden.
The 2 stall in Sveged, Hungary.
The 6 stall in Brandon, Manitoba, Canada.
The 6 stall in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada.
The 6 stall in Baldwin, Ontario.
The 6 stall in Portage-la Prairie in Manitoba, Canada.
The 6 stall in Blind River, Ontario.
And number 73 in Canada, the 8 stall in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Really exciting. This is the beginning of the Trans-Canadian Supercharger Network.
And number 497 in Europe, number 1711 in the world is the 2 stall in Debrecen, Hungary. And so that is a whole bunch that just went online in Hungary. It looks like you can pretty much cover the entire country of Hungary as well. All right, it's time for our Patreon giveaway. Remember that to get into this bucket of fun, you become a Patreon, and the more you support us, the more times we put your name in. So who's our winner going to be this week for the Cybertruck hat?
This hat?
Well, not that one. A new one.
Oh.
Yeah, so the winner's going to get the
You don't want my hat.
No. And remember that with EcoWare, you buy a tea, we plant a tree, and you help support the show because everything is completely carbon offset, and we design everything with solar energy.
And the winner is Arturo Guerra Perez.
Congratulations, Arturo. You just got yourself a Cybertruck hat, and you made it to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching the show. I do want to remind everybody about our new channel. I'm really excited about it, and it is kind of embarrassing to me because Jesse and the whole gang, Brent and Bobby, they told me 2 years ago, they're like, we should start a new channel and put all the clips on the channel. And I was like, what are you talking about? That'll just...
You were very against
that'll
other
confuse
channels.
everybody, and it should work like a network show. You should have a network with all of the things on the same channel.
Right.
But
this isn't
but here's the
HBO.
thing.
Right.
YouTube doesn't work that way. Their algorithm doesn't work with that way, and they don't allow you to subscribe to things specifically, so you have to subscribe to the whole channel. And we knew that if we put clips on this channel, it would just gum it all up. So here's the idea. You might watch this whole show and love the whole show, in which case you don't really need our clips channel. But there might be people out there, or maybe it's you, who are like, I don't have time for a whole hour, but I am interested in these particular topics, so you can go watch those clips.
Or you can share it with people that you know who would be interested in that topic but wouldn't necessarily click on a video that was an hour long that you shared with them. So
it does make sharing a whole lot easier.
That's what we're trying to do with it. So it's called Now You Know Clips, and it's basically clips from this show and other shows, and they're coming out all the time. So that way, if you're maybe if you skip an episode, maybe if you forget one week, you're going to be kind of reminded. But basically, each of these different little topics will have their own little videos.
And also, if we do a long interview with someone and you're like, well, I don't know if I want to watch the whole thing, is it any good? You could watch a clip from it and see if you're interested in that topic. So that's another reason. But the whole reason we can do this is because of our Patreons, because without the resources that we get from them, we wouldn't have the bandwidth and
manpower to do it.
Like,
it just wouldn't happen. We would just be sitting here recording the show every week. We wouldn't be able to edit it. You just have this long thing, and we'd be constantly messing up. I can't tell you how many times we messed up. What was the name of that guy? You kept screwing up his name. Well, let's throw in some bloopers, because it's really, really funny, all of the bloopers that we have. And yeah, it would be great if we had like a blooper reel. But again, manpower. And Brent and Bobby have just, I know that you just spent an hour watching this. Brent and Bobby spent like 5-6 hours straight from 5 o'clock in the morning onward to make this show for you to watch today with the news that was current yesterday.
Right.
That takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching. Please consider supporting us on Patreon because it lets us do more exciting stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Now you know.